Hi, you're on a rock floating in the Atlantic Ocean. Some people call this rock England. Holy, holy, holy Lord! What's all this then? He is not here, for he is risen. Huh? That's right. While you were busy being a Roman-era dirt farmer, God became human and died for your sins, then came back to life. Some people even think Jesus visited England as a child. You can make a religion out of this, and they did. Then, in 33 AD, Joseph of Arimathea came to England bearing the Holy Grail and spread the Oh, wait. That's just pious tradition? Dang. What actually happened is that the Roman emperor converted to this whole Christianity thing, and his soldiers brought the gospel to England sometime between the 1st and 3rd centuries. Very cool, Constantine. Knock, knock. Who's there? The Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, said some Germans, burning Rome twice. Oh no, said the Pope, losing contact with British Christians for 200 years. It's okay, though. They survived in some monastic enclaves in Wales and Scotland, and even developed some funky traditions, like having Easter at a different time. Once Rome got done being repeatedly burned, the Pope decided he wanted to get back in touch with the English Church again, so he sent Augustine of Canterbury to reconvert the British Isles. Augustine got down to business and baptized 10,000 people in the first year, including the king, then became the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Stamina. By the time he was done with the place, everybody was Christian again, and most people were pretty happy being Catholic for the next 1,000 years. Except for some early reformers and stuff. Hi, said Henry VIII, marrying his brother's widow. Wait, he said. I think this is wrong now. Hey, Pope, give me an annulment, please. No, divorce is bad. Henry threw a tantrum because he wanted to marry someone else. Fine, Henry said. I'll make my own church. And he did. Parliament passed the Act of Supremacy in 1534, permanently separating the Church of England from the Church of Rome. Henry dissolved the monasteries to make some sweet chili cheese, but he was a staunch liturgical conservative and wouldn't let the reformers reform. Poor Thomas Cranmer. He was actually so conservative that before he spat with Rome, the Pope gave him the title Defender of the Faith for writing a book defending transubstantiation. Then Henry VIII died, and his son Edward became king. He was just a kid, but his advisors were Protestants and rapidly embarked on a series of reforms to the English Church. Thomas Cranmer penned the first 2 books of Common Prayer in 1549 and 1552, which still form the basis for Anglican worship today. The BCP has all sorts of neat stuff, like the Daily Office, Communion in English, a new ordinal, the most famous marriage rite in history, and all sorts of other goodies. Things are looking up for the Prots. And then Edward died at 15. Who will succeed him? Not you. Not you. Hi, my name's Mary. Make everything Catholic again. Mary returned the Church of England to Roman Catholic jurisdiction for the 5 years of her reign, but she made herself rather unpopular in certain circles by burning too many Protestants at the stake. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, am I right, ladies? Then she died prematurely. What is it with these Tudors? And Elizabeth I ascended to the throne. She was secretly a Catholic, but was willing to forgo some of her preferences for church unity. She and her advisors made an update to the Book of Common Prayer in 1559 that compromised between the Catholic traditions favored by Mary and Henry VIII and the much more Protestant 1552 prayer book produced under Edward. Wow, it's the Elizabethan settlement. The Via Media, or Middle Way, has become official doctrine. The Church of England will keep the episcopacy and priests, but combine them with a distinctly Protestant and even Reformed, capital R, theology. Henry may have separated the Church of England from Rome, but it only became Anglican under Elizabeth. And this brings us, finally, to America, land of the free, home of the brave, and hotbed of religious dissidents ticked off by the Elizabethan settlement. That's right, it's the Puritans. The Pilgrims made their disease-ridden way to the New World in 1620, by which time there had already been an Anglican president in America for 15 years. So much for being the first. Lizzie's church oversaw the first ever English Eucharist in the New World in 1578, and the Anglicans built their first church at Jamestown in 1607. The Jamestown Anglicans were kind of intense. Colonists were required to attend matins and evensong every day and listen to 2 sermons every Sunday. They were so intense, in fact, that Virginia became the first American colony to make the Church of England its established church. This church was so established that vestries, which is what Episcopalians call church boards, literally ran most parts of the state and had the authority to levy taxes. We should bring that back. I think I would be better at taxes than the government. But this whole establishment thing, yeah, it turned out to be a bad idea. Like, a really bad idea. Vestries were unelected, unaccountable, and exclusively consisted of white male slave owners. The Anglican Church in the South became the nearly exclusive domain of the aristocracy and slavers. Why do you think George Washington was an Episcopalian? Thankfully, things were a bit different in the other colonies. In a real role reversal, Anglican was actually illegal in New England until 1689. Instead of being the staid institutional church of the aristocracy, we were cool outsiders with crypto-Catholic superstitions and the dastardly episcopacy. They were so cool that they did the Great Apostasy, literally destroying Congregationalism forever. Oh, I'm receiving news that it was actually just 7 Congregationalist ministers at Yale becoming Anglicans in 1722. Apparently, they didn't have much to do in the 1720s. In the liberal, diverse, and religiously tolerant middle colonies, the Anglican Church was merely one among equals and took on a middle and working class character. So, overall, things were looking up for the American Anglicans in 1775. They had hundreds of strong congregations, were growing rapidly in New England, and there were even... What's that? It's the American Revolution. God's favorite country was being born. And those royalist sympathizing Anglicans, well, they had to go. Who cares if they're evenly split on the issue of independence? They're all suspect. Let's lock a bunch of them in jail for using the Book of Common Prayer, the colonists said, and then did. Give me liberty or give me death was first uttered in an Anglican parish church, but the American Revolution ended up as something of a disaster for American Anglicans. The church was shattered, and it took the better part of 40 years to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Despite the disruptions that the Revolution caused in American Anglicanism, I think it was probably good for us. It reminded priests and laity alike that oaths, liturgies, and governments are subordinate to the commission of Christ, and that Anglicanism can exist without any formal connection to the government. A bunch of Maryland Anglicans got together for a convention in 1780 and started calling themselves Protestant Episcopalians. I wonder if this will be important later. By the end of the war, there were less than 10,000 Anglicans left in America, and they realized they had forgotten something important. They had no bishops. This was very bad. Very, very bad. It meant no priests, no deacons, and no leadership. William Light, informal leader of Anglicans in the Middle Colonies, didn't really care about bishops. Bro wanted to turn the newly dubbed Protestant Episcopal Church Presbyterian until we could get some Episcopos. But the New Englanders, well, they were Mount Everest High Church and were appalled. They held a secret meeting in 1873 and decided to send one Samuel Seabury to England to seek ordination as a bishop. Hey, name's Sam. Could y'all maybe ordain me so we can have priests and stuff in America? Will you swear loyalty to the king? No? We don't have one of those. Actually, just had a war about it, if you can believe it. Then screw you! Shunned by the English bishops, Seabury made his way to Scotland and was consecrated the first American bishop by 3 non-juring Scottish prelates on November 14, 1784. He came back to America in 1785 and got down to business, ordaining the first American clergy the day after his reception. The first convention of the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America was held that year, but it had some notable absences, including Bishop Samuel Seabury. Because his consecration had been by non-juring Scots, White and the Low Church Party didn't recognize his consecration. How rude! To bridge the gap, White and another priest were sent to England to get ordained by English bishops, bringing the count of American prelates to 3. They finally mended fences a couple years later, and the foundations of the church that we know and love today were laid at the 1789 General Convention. The convention adopted the first American BCP, made the most senior bishop in the church the presiding bishop, created a more republican form of the episcopacy that would give the laity oversight over their bishops, and gave General Convention broad powers to regulate the doctrine and discipline of the church. The English and Scottish ordained bishops came together in 1792 to consecrate the first bishop of Maryland, uniting the 3 streams of succession and ending that particular rift in the church forever. Despite these early successes, the church languished for the next 20 years. Deism was keeping people away from church, and most areas still lacked strong leadership. But the Spirit was ready to do something new in the church, and in the 18 teens, something new began to stir. And that is where we'll pick up in part 2 of the history of the Episcopal Church, I guess. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this channel with inquirers. I want this to be a catechetical resource for the whole church. Thanks for watching. I don't expect to make the next video in this series for some time, but I am planning monthly uploads from here on out. The next 2 videos in this series will be a history of the Episcopal Church from the 1810s to today, and then after that we'll have a 3rd video with some interesting historical tidbits, like stuff about Black Episcopalians, and the history of my own diocese. Bye!